This is a video on how to play Sudoku. So I don't really know how to pronounce it, but so Sudoku is a game that's basically it's a logic-based game, and the objective is to fill a grid with numbers. Um, and so the main objective of the game is you have a 9x9 grid, and your grid has digits in it. And so you have rows here. So you have a 9x9 grid, and you have digits in it. And basically, your objective is to fill each row and each column with digits. Now, on the side here, we have the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And so each row can only have one of these numbers, one of each number. So you can only have 1, 1 in this row, 1, 1 in this column, 1, 1 in this row, 1, 1 in this column. 1, 1 in this column, 1, 1 in this column, 1, 1 in this row. So you can basically only use one number, each number once per column and per row. And so the objective is to fill up each square without repeating any numbers within the row, the column. And so there's different levels of difficulty of Sudoku. The easier games, they start out with more numbers already filled in at the start. Whilst the harder games, they start out with less numbers filled in at the start. And so if we look here, this one right here is occupying this row, this column, and oh, sorry, I forgot to also state, each square can only also have one number in it as well. So you cannot repeat numbers within the row, within the square, or within the column. So we can only have 1, 1 in this entire column. We can only have 1, 1 in this entire row, and we can only have 1, 1 in this entire square. Notice that there are 9 squares in each row, 9 squares in each square, and 9 squares in each column. So this ensures that you can only use each number once. So look at this upper left square right here. We already have a 1 here. So we can't place a 1 in this square, this square, this square, this square, this square, or this square, because we already have a 1. We can't place any more 1s in any of these squares. This 1 is also occupying this top row here. And so we can't place any 1s in this top row right here either. And this 1 is also occupying this column right here. So we cannot place any 1s in this column. So we have the upper left square, and what you should do is try to see what numbers you want to place where. Now there's a couple of strategies for this. First of all, you have to be patient. You have to recognize patterns and different sequences of numbers on the grid. If you look at this grid and you start to try to randomly place numbers in random spots, you're not going to have a good time. Sudoku is a logic game, combinatorics, which means that it's largely based on your ability to arrange numbers. And so you want to be patient with it, and you want to think about each move you make. Every single move you make in Sudoku should have logic behind it. It should not just be a random move that you make. So one way, the best way, I guess, to play Sudoku is trying to use process of elimination. Now, in this square, now what I like to do is start off with the square that has the most numbers in it, because that's where you can usually, it's hard to mess up there. So now that the rules are basically explained, you cannot repeat a number within a square, a row, or a column. Let's just go through a demo game so you guys can see how it kind of plays out. Now, what you have to do here is you have to think. I have 2, 3, I don't have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now, I don't have a 9, I don't have a 4, and I don't have a 1 in this square. Now you might be saying, okay, well, do I place the 4 here? Or do I place the 4 here? Do I place the 1 here? Or do I place the 1 here? And this is where we use the process of elimination. We have two squares. One of them has to have a 1. One of them has to have a 4. Well, this row right here already has a 1. So we cannot actually place a 1 in that sequence. Now, what does this mean? This means that you can only place a 1 in this left. Now, we had a bit of an issue there, but we're back. And so, we cannot place a 1 in this row at the top there. Because, in the square at the top right here, because we already have a 1 in this row. You can only have 1 of each number in a row or a column. That means the only number that can go right there is a 4. Now, this is the easy mode of Sudoku, and so some games actually give you the numbers in the other spots. It's dependent on each version. We're just playing in easy mode, so it's easy for us. But now, based off of that, the only number left here is 1. So you go to this square and click 1. And there we go, we filled that square in. Now, what we have to do is we must look at other squares now. So what other square is quite filled up? I noticed that this square is quite filled up. And so let's look at it. We are missing a 1, a 2, a 3, and a 5. Now, we can't have a 1 in this row. We could have a 3, a 2, or a 5, but we don't know for sure. Can't have a 1 in this spot. So can't have a 1 in this row or a 1 in this column. So we can't have any 1s around here, any 1s over here. By process of elimination, our 1 is right there. Now, what does that mean? We look at this. We are missing, now we are just missing a 2, a 3, and a 5. We cannot have a 5 here. Why? Because we already have a 5 in this column. So we can't have a 5 in that spot. We could have a 2. We could have a 3. We don't know. In Sudoku, you only make a move unless you don't make a move until you're absolutely sure. Right here, we could have a 2. We could have a 3. We We can't have a 5 because we already have a 5 there. So it's between 2 and 3. And right here, we could have a 2, we could have a 3, we could have a 5. We don't have any decisive moves here, so we leave this square, we go to another one. This square has a lot of spots filled in. Let me try this. So we're missing a 3, a 6, a 7, and an 8. Can I have a 6 here? We could have a 3, we could have a 7, we could have an 8. Can I have a 6 here? We could have a 3, we could have an 8. Can I have an 8 here? But that doesn't really give us much information. And right here, we can have a 2. Well, we can't have a 2 because we have a 2 right there. So what are we missing? We're missing a 6 in this square, a 7, and an 8. We cannot have, well, this doesn't give us much information either. So we have to keep going to squares that give us information. We keep looking until we have a square that can give us information. And then Sudoku is hard. It is not easy, but it's part of the brain. So let's go back to this square. We're missing a 3, a 2, 3, and a 5. Can't have a 5 there, so we could have a 2 or a 3. Can't have a 5 here, so we could have a 2 or a 3. I'm thinking we put the 5 here. Then we put the 2 there. Oh, that's wrong. That's actually wrong. So we have to undo that. So it told us that was wrong. So let's think about why that was wrong. If we put a 2 anywhere in this column, that would mean that we can't have a 2 here. If we put a 3 anywhere in this column, that would mean we can't have a 3 here. So let's put a 3, and we get that. But what was our logic for that? Now, I'm not the most experienced Sudoku player, and so I can't spot some of the things that you might be able to spot. But right there, whenever you make a mistake, it's always good to realize why that was a mistake. Now, I just don't have that high level of Sudoku play, so I wasn't really able to pick out that mistake. But that means this square is a 2. And so we have a 1, a 2, we're missing a 3, and an 8 in this column. We can't have a 3 there. That means, because we already have a 3 in that row, that means this is our 3. This is our 8. And we've completed that column. Now, what do we have left here? Well, we have this row. And what do we have left? 1, 2, we have 3. And we have 8 and 9. We can't have 9 or 8 here, because we already have 9 and 8 in this column. So we have 3, 8, and 9 left. We have to place 3, 8, and 9 in any of these spots. We already have 8 and 9 in this column, so we can't have 8 and 9 go there. That means this is 3. Now, let's look at 8 and 9. Now, 3, we have 8 and 9 left. We already have 9 in this column. That means this has to be 8. What does that mean? That means this has to be 9. There we go. Now, let us look and see what else we can complete now. This row right here is fairly complete. It's fairly complete. It only has 3 spots left. You want to always try to look for the square, the row, or the column that has the least spots left. So we have And look for the numbers you have left. So we have 1, 2, 5, 1, 2, and 5. 5 can't go in this middle row. 5 can't go in this above spot square because it's also in that top row. That means this has to be 5. Now we have 2 and 1. 1 can't go in this top square because 1 is already in this row. That means this is 1 and this is 2. I did practice before trying this, but I apologize if I'm not the best. It is quite a hard game. And now this top row only has 3 spots left, so we're going to shift our focus here. We have 1, 2, we're missing 3, 6, and 8. So we already have 3 in this column, so we can't put a 3 there. We already have 8 in this column. We can't put an 8 there. And we don't know, we could put 3, 6, or 8 here. So we're kind of stumped here. We don't really know. Wait, we do know. Do we know? Do we know? This is tough. A 3, a 6, and an 8. We already have a 3 in this square. We already have, so it's between a 6 and an 8. Now, if we can't put an 8 here because that row is occupied, we can't put an 8 here because this row is occupied. So the 8, and we can't put an 8 in this square because this square already has an 8 in it. So this top space must be an 8. That was an example of a harder deductive reasoning, but we did it. Remember, you have to look at the squares, the columns, and the rows. Now, what do we have left? We have 2, 4, 6, 2, 4, 6. We are missing a number here. I'm missing a number. I don't. 2, 1, 2. So we're missing 2, 4, 6. I'm missing 2, 4. Yeah, we're missing 2, 4, and 6. We can't have 4 go in here because 4 is already in the square. It's already in this row. We can't have 2 go in there. We can't have 6 go in here either. So 6 has to be, 6 is the only number left in this square, so 6 has to go there. What do we have left? We have 2 and 4 left in this column. 2 is already in this row, 2 can't be there, so this is 4, and then that means this is 2. Very well. Now, let's shift our attention to this row right here. So, what do we have left? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we need 6, 7, and 9. 7 is already in this row. So 7 could be either this or this. 6, 7, and 9. 9 is already in here, so this is either 6 or 7. This is either 6 or 7. Now, which one could it be? Which one could it be? 9's right there. I guess let's swap our attention to this row right here. I mean, this column right here. We have, and this is just a demo game. If you get the gist of it, then feel free to click off. But what we have here is, we have, and now, this is a tough one. We have 1, 2, we're missing 3, we're missing 6, and we're missing 7. So we're missing 3, 6, and 7. 6 can't be in this bottom square because 6 is already in this grid, in this mini grid. So this is either 6 or 7. 3 can't be in this middle square. So this is either 3, 6 can't be in this one. So this one is between 3 and 7. This is a tough, we're in a tough spot here. We have to really use our brains here. This really makes your brain think. It's like chess. It's a great game. And so let's put our attention back to this middle row. 6, 7, and 9. This can't be 7. This can't be 6 either because 6 is already in this column. So this has to be 9. Now it's just between 6 and 7 for these two. Well, we don't actually have enough information for these two. And so we'll hold off on that. But we did get some more information for this bottom middle row. So we have 1, we're missing 2. We're missing 2, 5, and 6. 6 can't be in here, so 6 is either this or this, because we already have 6 in this grid of squares. So 2, 5, and 6. Well, wait, are we missing 2, 5? So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Well, we already have 5 and 6 in here, so that means, so this row can either, in this space right now, just looking at the square, the possibilities in this row are 2, 5, and 6. Our reasoning is that we look at this square, this 9 grid square, we already have 5 and 6 in here. So this could be 2, 5, or 6. 5 and 6 are already in the square. 5 and 6 are already in this square. And so that means it can only be 2. Now, what does this mean? This means now one of these is 5 and one of these is 6. We can't really tell just from this which one it's going to be. That's just way too hard because they're both in the same square. And so we divert our attention to another row. What are we missing? We're missing 2 in this row. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. We're missing 5 and 7. We already have 7 in this column. So we can't have another 7 anywhere in this column. So this has to be, we can't have any 7 anywhere else in this column. This has to be 5. That means this has to be 7. That means now we look at this top row. 1, 2, we're missing 3 and 6. We don't have enough information to actually fill this out right now. What does that mean? Swap our attention to this row. We're missing 2 and 6. We already have 6 in this column. We can't have 6 anywhere in this column, so that means we can't have 6 in the square. The only other option is 2. So in this square, we must have 2. That means this square must be 6. Now, what does that mean? Now, if we go back up here, we're missing 1, 2. We're missing 3 and 6. We already have 6 in this column. We're missing 3 and 6 from this square. We already have 6 in this column. That means this has to be 3. That means this would be 6. Now, that means what are we missing in this column? We're only missing 1, so this is just easy. We can fill it in. We're missing 9 here. We fill in the 9 right there. Now, what are we missing here? 6 and 7. We already have a 6 there, so we can't have a 6 anywhere in this column because we already have a 6 up there. So the only possible were 6 and 7, but we already have a 6 up there, so that means the only possible here is going to be 7. This is going to be 6, just by process of elimination. Now, we look at, let's pick a grid here. Let's pick this one here, because it only has 3 empty squares. This one only has 2 empty squares, this column. So 1, 2, we're missing 3, we're missing 7. We can't actually fill this in. We can. We know we have 3 in this group of 3 by 3 here. We have 3 in this middle quadrant here. So we can't have 3 anywhere else again in the square. The only possible for the square were 3 and 7 based off of this column. But since we already have 3 in this square, that means this has to be 7. That means this one has to be 3. Now, what are we left with here? We are left with this column here as well. So we're left with 1, 4, and 7. Now, this could be 4. This could be 1 or 4. It cannot be 7. This cannot be 1. This could be 4 or 7. This cannot be 7 because 7's in this row. This cannot be 4. And our 3 possibilities are 1, 4, and 7. Since 7 is already in the row, 4 is already in the row, this is going to be 1. That means we're debating between 4 and 7 for the bottom ones. 7 is already in this row. It's between 4 and 7. 7's already in this row, so we can't pick 7. Therefore, this is 4. Therefore, this is 7. Now, what is this going to be? We're missing 1 and 5. We already have a 5 in this 3 by 3 in this bottom quadrant. We can't place another 5 here because that'd be 2 5s in this bottom quadrant. Since we're picking between 1 and 5 and we can't place a 5, this is going to be 1. This will be 5. And obviously, I'm missing a lot of easier ways. If you have 8 squares filled out in a little quadrant, you automatically know what the 9th is going to be. And I just realized I missed that for a bunch of them, so I apologize. Let's look at this row. We're missing 2. No, we have 2. We're missing 3, and we're missing 8. 8 is already in this column, so that means this has to be 3. This has to be 8. And now, what are we going to do? Well, in this column, we are missing 2 and 6. 2 is already in this row. That means this 6 is the only option here. 2 is the only option here. Just by process of elimination, you look. If you have 1 square empty in a column, a row, or a group of 9 squares, you automatically want to know what that number is going to be just by process of elimination. And lastly, we have 3 squares left. We have 1. In this column, we're left with 3, 4, and 5. 5 is already in this row. 4 is already in this row. This top left in this bottom quadrant must be 3. We're left with 4 and 5. 5 is already in the row. Oh, we can just use process of elimination. And right here we can go 4. And so we completed the game. It took us 30 minutes. That's just on easy difficulty. And so there's a lot more. The higher the difficulty, the less squares you start out with filled in, which means there's more probability of you messing up, right? Because you have to fill in more of the squares yourself. But that was it for the Sudoku tutorial. It's a fairly straightforward game. It's a fairly fun game, and there's a lot of room for growth. The skill floor is low, so the floor to start out is relatively simple, but the skill ceiling is incredibly high, and you can find incredibly difficult Sudoku games. We took 30 minutes for a relatively easy game, which isn't a good time. So obviously, first you want to hammer out the basics, try to actually fill in the square without making mistakes. We had one mistake in this video, and I apologize. And then after that, you're going to try to time yourself and be quicker. But that's pretty much it. Thank you.